Investment Network's platform. Today, in our Women in Finance and Investment Spotlight series, we are in conversation with Mamedupi Matsipa, CEO and Executive Director at Atta Capital. She has over 17 years of career experience in diverse areas, such as information technology, financial services, and investment and fund management. Her expertise is in structuring and implementing private equity transactions, corporate financing solutions, business strategy, and corporate governance. A passionate about impact and a believer that future sustainable growth lies within social development and youth empowerment, she has joined us to talk about her journey as a woman in the finance and investment space. Mamedupi, welcome to our platform, and thank you so much for the time and for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Dikshita, and a huge privilege to be on this platform, especially given the objectives that you're trying to fulfill as Women in Finance and Investment Network. And I guess greetings to the listeners.
Thank you so much. Okay, for our audience, women in corporate leadership roles are making a vital contribution to the private sector driven growth throughout the developing world. Female leaders who make it to the top often make use of special combination of industry knowledge and management skills, which as a result help to set examples for others. Such women bring unique perspectives to the table and provide diversity and insights and experience that can enhance a conversation, strengthen a firm, and set strong course of business and development in the future. Mamedupi, I can say that you have 18 years of experience in this journey of your professional journey. You started as a management consultant, and today you're leading Atta Capital, which is a cross-sectoral alternative asset fund manager that is focused on identifying and maximizing real investment opportunities to create stakeholders' impact and drive sector transformation. Mamedupi, like I was saying, your role is undeniably crucial for the company's organizations and operation. I would like to know from you a little bit about your background, about your upbringing and education, and are there any experience that has defined you or molded you into the strong woman you are today?
Thank you for that question, Dishika. So I was born and bred in Soweto, one of the larger townships in South Africa, in the 1980s. So really at the heart and the height of the apartheid era and repression in South Africa. And really amidst also the challenges and contradictions of township life. You know, I lived in the township and had friends and family in the township, and then had to go to school, for instance, in the suburbs. And obviously there were challenges of then having to integrate and fit into that environment. I think my parents largely sheltered us from the oppression and the discrimination, and really taught us about resilience and hard work. I think a strong work ethic is what my parents were really about. And despite all of this, I think one still was quite alive to the differences. And I believe some of that really shaped some of my background. Coming back to, strong Black women in my life, I am one of 3 girls. And I'm surrounded in my family by very strong Black women. My maternal grandmother, or maybe let me start with my paternal grandmother first. She had 13 children. And what she really taught us was about bringing up, that many children with very little, and really being a homemaker and making things work, as I say, with very little. My maternal grandmother was an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and she really taught us about independence, and also about having a wider view of the world. She traveled a lot, and I think that really exposed us to the possibilities beyond just our closed off, environments at home. So all of that, I believe, really influenced and molded me into the woman that I am today.
Wonderful, wonderful. As I mentioned earlier, you started your career as management consultant at Accenture, and you are today the CEO and executive director of Atta Capital. So within the past 2 decades, how has been your professional journey, and what pushed you to become a woman leader in the investment world?
So as much as you talk about the fact that I started my career at Accenture in management consulting, I studied a Bachelor of Commerce degree in information systems and actually majored in information systems. And at the time that I decided to study that degree, it was really at the height of the IT boom. And it was driven by my curiosity around systems and how things work. And I guess the logic of things and behind technology as a whole. I was also the, resident technology geek in the family, always the go-to person when somebody had some or other tech issue. I was that person that, they would come to for assistance. And I quite enjoyed that role. And that really influenced me then going and studying that and going into the management consulting world. At Accenture, I focused mainly in the communications and high-tech sector, as it was called at the time. And that was really focused on the telecoms industry. I spent a lot of time consulting for the large telecoms and mobile networks within the South African context. But very soon in, I think, my journey, and given that I think I also have a commerce degree, I then had the sparked interest in finance and business and how businesses work and the drivers and of various industries. And so part of a key decision at that point was then to change careers, actually, and target myself into the financial services world. Firstly, working in an investment bank and still doing IT at the time, but with a very clear plan that from there, I was going to be moving into what is called, I guess, the front office, and effectively being an investment banker. And those various moves then also then led to my moves into private equity eventually, which was my ultimate goal. But I think my career was always characterized by challenges. I think making the decision to change careers when you don't even really have the background studies is not an easy one, because you really have to prove your worth to the people that you are now offering yourself to from a career change perspective. The IT world and the financial services world is very dominated by men, and is also very largely transformed from, I guess, a color perspective, and so you were always, I guess, working against those challenges. And it really did become a bit more acute in the financial services industry, because it was quite clear around the profile of, I guess, professional that they were looking for. And quite frankly, in many spaces, I wasn't it.
Oh, wow. But I think that's absolutely impressive. My next question to you is, looking back at your career, what are some experiences that were unique to you being a Black female leader? Were there risks that you have taken through your journey to becoming a CEO and executive director?
Yeah, so I think I've always largely seen myself as quite risk averse, I'd like to believe. But I think my determination and drive to be a success in financial services specifically, especially because of the hurdles that I had experienced in the past, has probably driven me to take some risks that have even surprised myself in some of those instances. As I say, it's no secret that the industry is dominated by males. And I think as a woman in many spaces in our industry, it's still not uncommon to find yourself sitting in a boardroom or in a room where you are the only, and in that space, you then also have to then find the courage to be seen, to have a voice, as a minority in the boardroom around the table, and to really, I guess, go against the grain if you need to. From a risk-taking perspective, obviously in probably anticipation and impatience is probably a better word of trying to get into this financial services industry, at some point during my career, I decided to actually go back to school. So I stopped working. I then packed up my bags and effectively became a full-time student again.
Wow.
In order for me to be able to then come back into the and make my chances, I guess, better at opening doors in this industry that had, I guess, historically closed these doors from me because I wasn't, I guess, the right profile, didn't have the right degree, didn't have the experience, was too young, for instance. And that leap of faith, effectively, to say, well, this is where I want to go, and then, I guess, take the time off to go and study, really, I think, put me in good stead to then come back into the industry with a fresh set of knowledge and a heightened determination, I guess, to be successful.
Wow. It takes guts, I think, to go back to school after starting work,
It is.
Mamedupi, okay, for our young viewers, many of us cannot think 20 years ahead of us, and they are bothered and worried whether the first place they reach in their professional career is right or wrong. What would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I think especially given where I come from and the journey that I've taken on my career, I think the big learning for me is that careers are fluid. I think gone are the days where you were forced to pick a career and then stick to it and then, work for one organization for many years in fulfilling that career choice. Given where I've started and where I've eventually landed, it's almost a totally different place to where I started. And it is really about the journey and not so much about the destination. I think for me, what young people, I guess, who have a couple of years ahead of them really need to learn about is that wherever they are, they really need to be about learning as much as they can there and seeing how the information that they're getting and the experiences that they're getting at that time can then hold them in good stead for other opportunities going forward. So I had the same, I guess, worries initially, especially as I was jumping around from role to role, trying to find myself and this big goal of being, I guess, ultimately in private equity, and did then worry that in this moving around, I wasn't gaining, I guess, the core experience that I needed to in order for me to be, I guess, a successful entrepreneur and, I guess, professional in this space. But what I've learned, and probably even come full circle in certain instances, is that all that I've done in all these, I guess you talk about 17 years of my career, has not been in vain, actually. All the learnings that I've had the last couple of years, whether it was in IT, whether in my current role, and I can actually look back on some of those learnings and experience and use them in my current role. So for me, I think ultimately, I do believe, as long as you have the end goal in mind, it is about the journey at the end of the day, and make sure that as you are moving along, you are learning and adding value where you can.
Wow, and as we say, every experience counts. Were there challenges along your way to the point that you felt you would give up?
Yeah, I think the challenges, as I've highlighted earlier, had really been driven by this wanting to get into an industry where I wasn't necessarily viewed as the right profile. These stereotypes that are attached, especially to us as women leaders, around our focus and dedication to work. In some instances, you go and you interview and people ask you questions around your plans for family and children, because they're obviously already looking ahead to see, at which point will you jump off and go and have kids, etc., which I guess is the challenges that we experience as women across all careers, but it does exist. For me, I knocked on many doors to get into private equity. I mean, I identified this as my ultimate career, landing. But it probably only came together a couple of years after knocking on doors. And in that experience, I was told I was either too young, as I say, I was, had the wrong degree, and they were not looking to hire women in certain instances, and they were blatant about it. And it really did get to a point where one that did get a bit discouraged, and wondered, whether you had made the right move at the end of the day. But I think it's the resilience that has kept me going. As I say, it is very easy to get discouraged in scenarios like that. And for me, it was really having clarity of vision. I was very clear about where I wanted to end up. So it was about staying true to the course and being able to really adapt where there were setbacks. And to be honest, to be able to take those risks. I did take a number of risks in moving around. They weren't risks for the sake of risk. I think they were calculated risks, but nonetheless, they were daunting. But they have, I guess, led me to where I am today because I was willing to take them.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. Personally, myself, I feel, hearing such things. Yeah, taking risk is key. If you have the vision, yes, to move forward, you got to take risk. Mamedupi, very critical to what WIFIN as an organization is addressing when referring to the global underrepresentation of women in the finance and investment industry. I would like to ask you, how important are conversations around diversity and inclusion in the finance and investment space to you?
Yeah, I think those conversations, and specifically to me, because I have experienced, I think the challenges of industries that are not represented, and underrepresentation, I guess, of women in finance. So for me, those conversations are important for as long as women remain underrepresented in the industry, and all stakeholders in the industry have to effectively and be part of those conversations. I think for me, some of the conversations we have in these organizations are always about women talking to other women about diversity and inclusion. And yes, I think we can sit there and support each other and speak about our challenges and share our experiences, which is very valuable. But I think we then need to open up those forums and include the other, in order for them to also be open to the challenges that we are experiencing, in order for them to be conscious about those challenges. I think a lot of it is already about awareness of what we experience, so that in their day-to-day, they can then start being more aware and conscious of it, and then have a concerted effort to transform. So for me, the men must be included, everybody must be part of this conversation, every stakeholder, so that we can then have a common goal and understand where we're wanting to get to. As a career leader, I guess, or a leader in the space, I think we really should look at focusing on how we create more opportunities and support those professionals who are starting out and coming up behind us. You talk about internships, for instance, as part of your organization's initiatives. I think that's the only way that we can start looking at transforming the industry and bringing in the women into the industry by exposing them to those opportunities, and deliberately so. For me, I've always viewed my career journey almost as a door opener for the people behind me. I may not have directly benefited from some of my struggles and seen the fruits of it myself, but I am comforted by the fact that I probably made a difference for somebody else that I left behind. And so that fighting, if you can call it that, was not in vain, because somebody else would then have benefited from the work that I guess I would have done in my journey and trying to open up those doors.
Wow. That is so nice. Thank you so much, Mamedupi, for sharing with us your journey as a female leader in the finance and investment space. And I think, as you rightly said, it is of no use to just talk about diversity and inclusion in this industry with women only, because we need to involve their men, their women, and only then we can expect change, when the whole industry together is getting involved to ensure transformation. And personally, I believe that such discussions are really valuable. So, Mamedupi, it's been a pleasure to have you on our platform. I am very positive that your journey is definitely motivating and inspiring women out there who are in their early career stage, and hopefully they look up to you and they be inspired to achieve a successful career. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the invitation.
Oh, okay. To our audience, definitely, thank you very much for watching till the very end. And if you've enjoyed this interview or you have any questions regarding this subject, please feel free to let us know by using the comment section at the bottom of the video. Until then, let's keep making it happen.